Hopefully, I did make a few changes, but let's see. Yeah, have to hack into the screen. Was the first challenge. Let's see if we've made any. Were you guys not able to hear me before either? Yeah, seems like that might have been the case. Uh, all right. So, oh, you didn't hear me before. Okay, that's fine. So, hi everyone, and officially welcome you to this stream. My name is Siddiqui, and I'm a student mentor at OffSec. Today, we'll be today, welcome to the hackathon, uh, offensive security, OffSec actually, and you know this is our way. So we've been known not to give out freebies, and we don't really give out prizes, but when we do, this is how we do it. So we give it as a challenge. So hopefully you guys have checked out all the offerings, what are the levels to play in, and all those other details. You can also visit the site to check them out. But let's come to the stream. So it's been a while since I streamed, and last time we did the Active Directory set. So, and this time I also wanted to keep on with that theme and follow through with the Windows host. So today we'll be doing Heist from PG Practice, and it's rated by the community as being super hard. So let's check that one out. So let me switch over to my VM, and now my VM has it's showing. I definitely can see that this one has gone dark, but not sure why. Let me just quickly see. All right, out of focus. Wow. So let me just quickly fix this and then we will get started. Um, doing Probably doing it live. Yeah, I have to debug in live preview. Nice. So I'm just gonna switch that right here and gonna move it to the middle. All right, so we can now get started. I know there might be some bars, but yeah, now it should be visible. So I'm just gonna lock that up and get to hacking. All right, so now my screen is visible to you guys. We're all set. So let's now get started. So I'm quickly gonna first move on to the browser and open up that host for you guys so we can see what we are dealing with and all those nice details, right? So I wanna get my PG. It's already been set for us. And I'll most likely have to get my VPN started. So I'm just gonna connect that. Let me know about the size of uh, the terminal. Maybe I can increase that up so that me confirm with the chat. What is the size? Okay, the terminal questions, I'll try to answer them. I've been getting every time I do get people asking for the config, and it does take a bit of manual labor to get it going. But yeah, it's basically tmux and a bit. I'll share the link where I actually created it from. But yeah, it's tmux. I'm using tmux and i3 to keep it light. and all that. So the size, I want to make sure the size is big enough for you guys so that you guys are able to look at it comfortably. I guess this is good. And let me just move and make a new directory called Heist. We'll also grab the information from there. So we want to come to practice, and it's an E. Yeah. So I'm also going to get it started. Yeah. So while this starts up, I'm just going to grab the name and have our config ready. So because we're a bit short on time and we did miss out a bit in the initially, so I am going to be using Metasploit for this. However, I will be focusing more on the concepts for the host, because this host is rated as difficult primarily because it has three levels of like escalation. So you have to get through the initial foothold, then you have to move laterally to to another account, and then finally you get the administrator account. So that's why it's going to be a bit longer. But yeah, so I'm just going to say hackathon and we can get started. I can check up on my VPN and see that it has been running nicely. Next, I will create a few windows, all that jazz. Right. So we can see that it did start up and we have been assigned an IP address. So it is a Windows machine, and the author was Enox. He's also a student mentor at OffSec, and most of you might have interacted with him in the Discord channels. So fairly recent, not that, but it's rated as hard. So I'm going to first set the IP variable to match all of my terminals. So it's going to be command export target, and we so basically it's going to be this command but pasted in the command window so that we don't have to keep on repeating ourselves. I'm just going to grab it from here, come to my commands, paste it, and we're good to go. So now I have it running on all of my terminals. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm actually going to get Metasploit started, console started, so that we can also do the scans and everything just through it directly. While this starts up, let's do an initial scan. And because we know it's a Windows host, we can even start with an enum for Linux. Now, this library does require a few modules, like is has a few dependencies for Python. So most likely we'll have to use a virtual environment for it. And I already have one set up which I use and I know works. So enum for Linux ng -a, and I don't want the whole, I just want the IP address. Now here I can give the IP address, but I also, because we did most of the work, I can now specify it with target. And it said that all right. So as off the bat, it gave us a host name, which is expected with the Windows when we're enumerating a Windows host. And this is good because what we primarily want to see is the kind of host we're dealing with. Now, because this is a standalone machine, and if there is any active directory, like those any groups that might be enabled, or to get that sense, then it most likely will be a domain controller, because there needs to be a domain controller in order for this any of this to work. So we want to see if this is initially just going to let us know about its identity, sort of, and if the type of host it is. But this one didn't really give us much information. So now I'm inside of Metasploit and I have it configured so that it shows me the current active jobs, current sessions, and everything. So the first thing I'm going to do is let's see if we can get a workspace ready. So hackathon. And so we want to make a workspace. And basically, you can make it with workspace dash A and now let's get started. So I'm going to do a DB Nmap. This is basically a wrapper around Nmap. However, it will take all of the information from Nmap and store it in a database, which makes this easy to access later and also really helps with the reporting. So I'm just going to quickly do a min rate to see all of the ports that are open and then of our target IP address. So the variable does not get copied into Metasploit, so that's why we will have to specify it here. This looks good, and obviously we also want to make it a bit verbose so we can see, like we can do other things while this runs. So it's probably going to be blocking our pings, so we can just specify -pn and let it run. And we can already see there are a lot of services that are running on this host. So now after this, I will do a more thorough scan. However, this was just so that the scans run in the background while we also manually enumerate things. So let me also get my chat window up so that I can actually follow through what if you guys have any, so that usually that's one of the complaints that I've usually gotten that, you're not present in the chat. So I am going to take breaks, pauses so that I can take a look at what if you guys have any input and then move on. So let's see. Nothing so far. Obviously, we haven't done anything exciting. So we can already see the scan came back. Now, why did we do it in Metasploit? So that now if I do hosts, I should see it being tracked right here. So similarly, if I run services, I can already see Nmap Metasploit was able to identify a lot of these hosts services even before we ran a full scan. So so this will allow us to go manually check things out. So I'm particularly interested in our so this is usual. Obviously, it's also providing the DNS for this environment as it's a domain controller. Kerberos, again, nothing really that exciting. RPC is needed for SMB, LDAP, and the other SMB. So all of these, now this could be a potential vector, which we definitely should enumerate. But we also have these things. Now, so the other ones are basically the SSL sort of version for all the previous services. So it's not really that exciting. However, HTTP proxy and WSMan is one of the peculiar ones. Because usually with a Windows host, especially a domain controller, you're not going to see that SM file sharing services or any sort of web service running on the host. And that's primarily because that how Windows handles permissions. So in order for the service to fully function, it needs to be delegated some permissions, which without them, it won't really be able to fully function. So for that reason, and the services do give a bit of higher privileges and can be exploited easily. So you will notice some of these attacks are quite common for Windows. So having them, so like a web service running, a file sharing service running, or even a SQL server running on the domain controller itself is already a big red flag that this has potential vulnerabilities. Now before I keep on keep talking, I'm going to run a scan, but this time I'm going to specify -a so that it just scans all of the uh, services running on the host. In the meanwhile, what we'll do, we'll go check out this web server and we'll go check out the SMB and do some initial scans. This is also a good place to add this host to our etc hosts so that we can uh, we won't have to specify the IP address again and again. And also, if there are any subdomains were configured on the web server, we will be able to enumerate them and get to them. So I'm just going to call this one MSF, and I'm going to come over here. So, and another thing we can do is we can also launch crackmap exec and see enumerate both of those services. So let's see. I'm going to do target. Now it gave us the same information. So the host name is heist.offsec and the name is DC01. So we can even go and now place this in our etc hosts. So I'm just going to do, and let's come down. Actually, I want to come to the end of the file and place an entry right here. So we want to add this 171.165 and the obviously the domain and the domain name and also the name of the machine. So what we can do is actually we can do heist.offsec. Then we can also do DC01 heist.offsec. And then we can also create the entry for DC01 so that we can refer to it directly. So that we can then alias it sort of. But you need to remember to include both of those, the initial domain and then the FQDN, fully qualified name of the host. And if anyone is interested in this, this is NVChad. So it's quite good. You get a good LSP server running and you can get those completions. And you also get quite nice features and very lightweight. And also you'll notice the command I'm running right now is because I didn't use the root account or a sudo, didn't do a sudo to open this file, but in Vim, you can actually bypass this with this command. So it will allow you to edit it as normal user. So I'm just going to exit out of that now. So now let's try to see if there is anything running on WinRM. And this time I'll just do DC01. Now, the one thing I do not like about CrackMap is that it can take a while and does not give us output, but here it did work. And interestingly, I specified WinRM, and on those two ports, it shows us SMB and HTTP, and then also gave us this link. Now, this is quite like unusual because why is it enumerating other services, but the port is the same? So there's definitely something going on weird right here. And this most likely will be maybe it's a reverse proxy that's running on the main host, so like 8080 or this IP address, and it was able to enumerate, like follow through and see the actual service that was running on a single port. So that is most likely a reason. So if I come back to my Metasploit, it also ran uh, on the full scan, and let's take a look at this now. So like we saw, we know the domain name. Those things are not really that unusual. Then we also see LDAP, nothing again, and but this one, so RDP NTLM. So basically that means that when you do see NTLM and enabled, it's basically inside like in organizations when they have Windows environments set up. There's obviously employees that have to access certain resources. So let's say you have an SMB server, company SMB server or something running. Now, in order to make the whole process seamless and frictionless, most of the like Windows services, especially like Internet browser, like Internet Explorer and other configured services, they're configured to authenticate the user using their NTLM. So like NTLM auth, so that all they have to do is simply provide their normal credentials and they will get authenticated for the resource. And so obviously it's much more complex than that. I didn't do it justice, but basically most of the services do have like auto log on or such features enabled for Windows to so that the hosts can authenticate amongst themselves and you have easy access. Now, obviously, something like this can also be like it is a vulnerability. So we can here we can see that there is RDP enabled on the host, and if I have the authentication properly configured, I should be able to get into the like authenticate as a user. The second thing, which is you won't ever see in a production environment, is a Python server running on 8080. And it, so basically, we have a Python server that apparently is doing something. So this is obviously the biggest red flag, and definitely some place we should definitely start with. And we also see uh, on the same 8080, so most likely, so you'll notice that on port 8080, it's also showing us the other services, and most likely that is because it would be a reverse proxy. But we can check that out. So if I come over here, let me also grab my IP address, and I didn't really need to open a new window, but that's fine. So on 80, there's nothing, but if I go to 8080, let's see what there is. And this says a secure web browser. Now, obviously, this right off the bat, what this looks like is we can redirect most likely to a certain specific, resource. So before I do anything, I'm just going to open up my network resources tabs to see if I make any requests, where do they go? Now, unfortunately, this developer tab, I don't know how to increase the size for this, but we won't really be here much for that long. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to click around, see the like what requests were made, and we can already see that it redirects our request to a URL. Similarly, the second uh, link just sends us to localhost. So, this is basically sort of middleware, where middleware is like obviously authentication level. So if you want to ever protect a resource which does not by default have its own authentication, you know, uh, like firewall authentication service, you can obviously put up more. You can put up like Nginx or reverse proxies in front of them, and then have some sort of middleware come in between, which first authenticates the user and then moves them, that gives them access to a source. So this one we can see basically it will authenticate you and then redirect you to whichever resource we need. Now in this case, it's definitely like this is our starting point. Now if now the question is, what should we try here? Because from our request, we can just see it just redirects uh the use us, like whoever is running this service. And like I previously mentioned, in this case, this web server is running on a domain controller, and the domain controller most likely gave some sort of permission level for whichever sort of service. This is Python web server that's running, so it most likely gave it certain permissions for it to even exist, like the service to run. So that would mean that whoever we can try to, so we can target are like whoever is running the service. But let us enumerate it further. So the first thing we would definitely do is either start a Python server and see if it can connect back to us. However, the logging for that isn't really that verbose. So instead, I am going to be using the built-in Apache server, because I do like uh, the logs it provides. So you can already see that I should have Apache 2. So there is no Apache 2 service. But if I do it SSTLNP, you will see that I have something running right there. So that is our Apache service. I think if I can check it like this, it should be there, but I'm not going to spend too much time on that. So I do have my Apache server running. So let's try to redirect it towards us to see if it connects. And we can also check it by directly visiting our own website, our own IP. So I can just do a localhost and you'll see that I have the service running. So here I am going to, let's try to put in our own URL. So I'm going to specify the IP address, so 154, and that's it. Now, generally, you would want to add some sort of endpoint so that it does send a proper request, but either one should work in this case. So if I do that, obviously it's going to say request did not go through. However, if we come over here, you will see that we got a 200. So because the server nothing was served to them, that was the issue, but it did go through. So now if I come to my logs, which should be at cd var log apache 2, yeah, and let me just do uh and list them out. So this is what we want. So let's see now, access.log, and we can already see there were a couple of requests made. The first one was when we tried to connect to the servers, but this is where it came back to us. And the most interesting thing here is these headers. So these win HTTP headers, win HTTP is basically a Windows high level API that is accessible. Obviously, it's an API to basically handle all of this authentication, like NTLM, Net-NTLM, NTLM v2, all of the authentication for Windows. This is basically how an application running would do that. So utilize it. So it accesses this Windows API. So as thought, this one definitely is making some sort of authentication on the part of for the user, and that's how it's offering this service that come here, log in, and we redirect you to whatever resource you want to go to. So because of that, instead of me trying to serve something and get uh, you know the victim to download a malicious payload or something, we will instead try to grab those net NTLM hashes, because we know that the Windows HTTP header is being used. So this most likely tries to authenticate the user using uh, NTLM. So for that, we will be using responder. And the good thing about main other reason why I chose this host was so that I can also, show most of the students, because we do restrict responder, but only the poisoning, part, like the poisoning functionality. The rest of responder you can use, especially even in the exam, as long as you have it configured properly. So I have seen most of the students be confused about this. So that's why I wanted to even showcase how you could safely, without worrying about breaking any policies, use responder for your exam or any other host that you use. So for responder, it does come installed uh, on Kali, but we basically want to take a look at the config and make some changes beforehand so that we don't have anything to worry about, that it's doing something that no, we didn't intend it for it to do. So your responder configuration file, you'll find it here, and in order to run the service, you need a root, like higher privileges. There is one setting that is recommended, and that will be, let me show you responders conf. So in the configuration, you have all these services that you can enable it for. Then you basically have this respond to, which allows you to restrict which from where it's going to be, like trying to force the authentication for from that source only. So I would recommend, if you ever even use it in the exam, just put, like, you set this variable up so that you're not worried if you're going to be capturing anything else. However, the main one is analyze. So I think here we won't see a mention of it, but if you check out their GitHub, you'll see that their analyze. So I'm just going to change it to user. So responder dash h. Uh, so this option dash analyze will only capture the hashes or other authentication and not really spoof or poison them, which is allowed. So make sure you just use dash a and you specify your whichever network device you want to listen on, like interface. And even if you add that respond to variable, then you're totally safe. Like you can run it without even thinking about it twice. But yeah, so in our case, I'm simply going to run it on or I'm just going to not limit the IP for this one. So I'm going to come here, responder dash A, then my interface, I think that was dash I, but we'll see. And I'm just going to specify ton 0. And we can already see that it's running in analyze mode. So another thing you have to make sure about is this. If you have previous services running, then it won't be able to run. So for that, let's first also disable our Apache service. So systemctl. Right. Now, if I run this, you can see that 80 is no longer there. Again, if you're on Ubuntu or any other Linux host, you want to maybe shut off your DNS mask or any other service that you have running so that it doesn't, conflict with this. But that's pretty much for us. We can let it run. So now if I try for it to authenticate, you can see that we did not get that same error that we got previously, which is most likely because it did do some sort of, authentication, and it said skipping previously captured. Obviously, I did, test it out. So this setting you can also change in the config where it will capture it again for the user. So I'm gonna have to most likely edit that. So easier to just go with this route. Responder, and let's say it is. Now it says that delete this file for previously captured. If I can't find the option quickly, I'm just going to delete that and see. But it is the rest of the options I do have them serve always. Yeah, most likely we'll just have to delete it and let it run again. So uh, I'm just going to exit out, and it told us to delete this if you want to capture that again. So I'm going to now run it. Hopefully it's going to behave, and yeah. So you can see that we were able to capture the NTLM hash for for that service that was running. Now, interestingly, you'll see that it's actually not the Apache service, or like obviously because it was Python, but you would expect the web servers to be running on those normal service accounts. And that's primarily because, like I previously mentioned, you would have to give that user certain extra permissions for it to properly function as a web service. So that is why in this case, we can see the initial user, it's Enox on Heist. And this is basically, it's their Net-NTLM hash. Now it does say NTLM v2, however, we can't really redirect it. And, so for pass the hash or those other attacks, we will have to resort to cracking this in order for to use it. So I'm just going to end this. And the good thing about responder is you don't have to copy paste from the screen. You get it in your logs file. So if I go to cd logs and I do L, you'll see that we have it captured right here. So KLMB2. So, and then obviously we have to clean it up because it looks like several requests were made. Now, interestingly, I do see three different, there are four different ones, but it's most likely the services that it was running on. But anyways, I'm just going to copy this over to my own, like the main one, and I will, so let me quickly copy that. And that looks good. Also go there myself and change the permissions on this file so that I can use it as a normal user and exit. So now we have our, and myself, I'm actually not there. So now we should have the file right here. So we'll have to clean it up if you want to run any sort of tracking software. For that, I am going to quickly go to VS Code and make life easier. Change it to my fourth, and here it is. So we have, looks like, four different hashes. Uh, this one. So I think the latest one would be the best place to start. So I'm just going to, I don't want to delete them, but yeah, let's just, let me just quickly create another file for to use in case I get the wrong one and then I have to, I've deleted it so I can't get it. So NTLM, and see if we can crack this. So we have both those files. I have John configured to use John RockQ. Yeah, John RockQ. That basically means that it's going to the word list is already pre-configured, and I will do NTLM hash. I don't even have to look at the formatting, because if you look at the docs for responder, the format it gives you is a jumbo John, I don't know, that sort of specification. So that means you can crack it directly. And here in our case, we saw that California is the password. Now, in case you had done it previously, done it before, then you would have to use John, specify the file, and then say show. This will give you all the cracks that had been done if there were like several hashes. However, if you just want the NTLM, then you would specify it like this, and then it would show it to you. I made a, so you can see that this is how previously cracked ones are accessible. So we have the password now. Now what we can do is, we saw that, look, we took a look at our crack map exec output, and we saw that there was some service running on, two services actually running on that. So I'm just going to try that one out. So I'm going to do crack map exec, and for that I have my Python environment running, and I'm going to do crack map exec. I want to look at WinRM, and the user Enox, password California, and target, I guess I can specify it without giving the uh, any flags, but yeah, let's see. So obviously I do have to specify the domain most likely, and then the IP address too. uh it's, it wasn't California. Oh yeah, definitely I made a yeah, you should definitely be copy pasting and not, like, going off the command. But yeah, let's see. Yep, I could see that and still made a spelling mistake. So Fornia, so yeah, California, what is wrong with this time? Error, following arguments are required, target. Yeah, this time it was the, let's see. Yeah, probably doing something because it just got stuck. All right, so this is interesting. So it shows us that there might be several services running. So it did say that on the domain controller itself, we couldn't authenticate. However, there is this service running. If we try to connect to it, it might. So through the web, it will let us log in. So for definitely, we will use Evil WinRM to initially get started and then go from there. But in the meanwhile, I also want to quickly check for other things that were running. So I'm going to do assembly. Now, very unlikely that we're going to get anything, but however, we should always uh, make sure that there isn't anything we're missing. And I believe they also added RDP recently to CrackMap exec. So you should, and then also SSH. So for the exam and other things, you should definitely enumerate all of them. But yeah, I think SSH is also there. So there is MSSQL, LDAP, SMB, SSH. Yeah, all of them. So we're just gonna go with this one. Now, Evil WinRM, I really like it as a tool. However, it is extremely unstable. So let me show you guys what I mean by that. So I'm just gonna make sure my environment is the right one. Yeah, so it is there. So you can launch Evil WinRM. Uh, it's basically a gem that comes in how you install it, and then it gives you several options. Now, one thing that I really enjoy about it is that you can specify your scripts path. Basically, that means that those scripts will be available to you direct like while you're in the can you take the exam from the Kali without a VM? You can. So there isn't a restriction on the VM. However, I would definitely that isn't recommended because you also are running the proctoring software, and that can take a toll on your PC. So you want to have a backup in case your VM dies, gets stuck, or anything. You want the exam itself, like the proctoring window and everything, on your main host, so that you can easily convey to them that, oh, look, this something isn't working. So I would like to, like, it just inform them, because if you get cut off, they will pause your VPN. So that would make then any connection shells or anything you have will die. So that's why you wouldn't want your exam VPN to be getting shut off directly. So the scripts. So Evil WinRM, the one good thing about it is if we can specify a scripts directory that we can then access quickly without uploading or downloading stuff. So I have one called OSEP serve. Basically, these are all most of the tools scripts I created or for these purposes. So we have most of our AD PowerShell scripts, and we also have our EXEs. I actually wanted to show you guys this one, the final stager, which basically is your Meterpreter payload, but with dynamic IP addresses. I'll show you guys what I mean. So what I'll do is first let's try to see if it even works. So evil WinRM user would be Enox, password would be California, and then the IP address. I think we have to specify it. I'm just gonna try to give it directly, and if it doesn't like it, it'll tell us. So we have to specify it using the flag I. So let's see, and we were able to log in. However, I don't want to continue. I'm gonna exit out of here and then show you guys the like how powerful it can be if you are able to specify the directory. So I'm just gonna do I'm actually gonna come to my exes, copy path, come to here, dash E for, I think, S for scripts and E for your uh, exes. However, they need to be C# ones, otherwise it won't work. So you can't have like Mimikatz is made on C++, so that won't work. It has to be an assembly file. So now if I do menu, you will see that I have a few options. DLL loader, donut loader, invoke binary. So this is where we will be able to execute all those exes that we provided. We also have services, so we can take a look at services. and we can already see a few things that are open. But I want to move to Metasploit, so that's what I'll be doing. So I'm gonna start a listener. So I want to get a gonna specify my host. My This is a shorthand for a multi-handler, so I'm gonna specify the my IP address. Gonna specify the port, so 443, and then the payload. So Windows x64 Meterpreter reverse HTTPS, and this will start a payload for me on that port. And you can already see it shows that I have one job running. Now, I'm not going to be creating another exe like a specific payload for this one. I'm going to be using the one I created, which allows us for those dynamic IP plugs. What I mean by that is, so if I do invoke binary, it's going to then give us the options to specify a binary file that we can run. So now I'll do binary, and the location was actually, let's see if it auto completes. It did. And I wanted to go with final stager. And the arguments it basically takes is run. So I did give it a few options. This is especially for OSEP where you wanted to either inject or spoof the parent process, but right now we just want to run the file. We want to give the IP address 45154 and the port. So if I run this, it will essentially uh, grab the payload being served by Metasploit, and it should use that. So let's see. So if I run jobs, and we have it on 443, and here you go. So we without having to create a payload, what we basically did was we used the Metasploit's like when you do a staged handler, it serves initial, like the rest of the payload on the port. So what you can essentially do is, if you do a little bit of programming, you can start a handler in Metasploit from here, and then you could grab the rest of the payload from your target machine and then inject it or whatever. So this is what we basically did. We did finals. We used this file, specified that here is the host and this is the port you have to get the rest of the payload from. And it came in and it grabbed the rest of the payload and gave us a session. So you'll see one job running and one session is up. And if I do sessions, we have a session right here. So that's this, and I can share the code for this one, how to make dynamic exes so that life becomes easier. So now we have this going on. So let's see uh which host are we. So I'm just going to do sessions -1. That makes it interacts with the so it takes you to the most recent session. And then you'll also notice that instead of the met the that prompt, it shows me the host name instead. And you can set this up with the set prompt option. So you have the set prompt and set meta prompt, and this will allow you to basically give you good, like, useful information instead of that. So it'll always show me the host name. The other thing I like to do is load some plugins, and the ones I'm going to be loading is Incognito, Kiwi, PowerShell, and Ext extended API. And this is basically going to give you all the Active Directory functionality that you kind of need. So I'm going to do load and just like line these up. So obviously we're going all out, but you generally can just go with what you need. But I just wanted to, why isn't copying? All right. So what essentially you can even do is in your, if let's say you're using a stageless Meterpreter, you can when you're creating the binary, you can actually specify which plugins it should include, and then have that far gigantic payload just be delivered at one time. So if I do all of these, we will get a few nice options which I wanted to showcase. And it's just gonna be loading all of them. Got us Mimikatz and everything, all the goodies. So now if I do help, you'll see a couple of additional options. So let's just go through those. Uh, the extended API that I loaded in through the plugin will essentially give us the options to enumerate. So let's say we were on a big domain like AD environment, we had several hosts and we had just gotten a foothold. We would then use this command to enumerate all the hosts on the network. Obviously, you can use PowerView and other scripted PowerShell scripts, but this one is very like easy to like. You don't have to do any additional sort of manual work to get this. So for our purposes, obviously, I know this is the only host on the target. So I want to look at, uh, obviously, we would run WinPeas, which I will also run. But in terms of Active Directory and that for that, we would definitely have to enumerate the network instead of just the host machine. But I wanted to showcase this one. So let's say I want to enumerate all of the groups on this host and all of the users. So I would basically do that. And then we have these other options, which I'm sure you guys uh, might be familiar with. So I'm just going to come here. It has so Metasploit has autocomplete. So it will also show you the options that you need. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to look at the users that are on this host. So I'm just going to do enum, and then let's look at the options. So you have to specify a domain, and that's pretty much it. The rest you can leave blank. So I'm just going to do DC O1, right? Or it was heist.offsec. Let's see. So it was able to enumerate all of this. Now, doing it manually would require you to load PowerView, and then you can do it, come up with the query and do it. But Metasploit gives you a really good option to quickly enumerate all of the users. And this was just so right now just included one domain, right? So just us, but because that's the only machine on the like in the environment. But let's say if there was a big environment with like 20, 30 machines, it would do this for all of them, right? So you'd get a nice big list of all the the computers, like all the services running and their users and all that nice stuff. So right off the bat, I do see that this is our user, but we also have a service Apache running. Now, right now, this was just something to take note of because obviously we don't really have enough to go in this direction even. So I'm not going to be going in this direction, but it's something to take note of. What we generally want to do is run WinPeas. Now, WinPeas, they also made a module for Metasploit. I had to add it manually, but I think they might include it in the latest one. Not sure, but if I do search WinPeas, I added a piece. WinPeas, you'll see that there is a post module. Yeah, present. I think I had to add it manually. I forgot, but I will include. You just visit their site, and they will. It is mentioned over there. So I'm just gonna do use 0 and options. So it gives us the same options that you would generally do, but for us, we would want the session, and then it would do most of the work for us. Now we also obviously we can give it the password, so but it was the same logic when you use it like use it with the script. So parameters to pass, password to encrypt. Nah, we don't want any of that. We're just gonna set sessions 1 and exploit. So it's still going to. So especially in the Pen 300 environment, if you have to be wary of the kind of payload, like if it's going to get flagged. So this directory is one of the nicer ones. Like you could do C Windows tasks, or you can even do spool drivers color. And what it basically does is it obfuscates. So it encrypts your the file itself, and then uploads it and runs it. So this is quite nice, right? So you could have a resource script that you could just run with like all of these options, especially for pen 300. That comes in quite handy. But it's going to do its thing, run. I would definitely have something lighter run so that I can, like, while this is running. And for that, the options we have is Sherlock. That's a good one. Power up. So let's also try to see that. So I'm just going to background this. Okay, it's the backgrounding killed the whole thing. Nice. F. I thought it would background the shell itself, but it didn't. That's fine. We can quickly get back on the box. So here we have our evil WinRM, and now there's no limitations on the use for Pen 300. Web 300 is not really useful. Like I'd imagine it's not going to give you an edge, but there's no restrictions on this. Like Metasploit for Pen 300. So you can use either like other options too, but this one is also powerful. For I myself during Pen 300, I use my own payloads, but I just stuck to Metasploit. Like I was able to do it. Like although there are other options out there too, but even with Metasploit itself, like especially all of these hidden, like not l- a lot of these features are actually, like uh, there's not a good blog post where you can learn the shorthands similar to what I shared, like handler, and then you can do a simple shorthand, and then you can script it really easily too. That's what I really like about it. I can just have like resource files scripting it. But we have our WinPeas output, obviously. So I'm just gonna, let's see what we can get. Now, I can already tell you guys that this one is primarily AD. So this, what we would need to focus on would be to get Sharphound running and like map out the environment to go forward. But we'll obviously have to do this just as like force of habit. And definitely you can't get on a box and not run WinPeas. Like peas on it, that is just like blasphemy. So yeah, so we can already see the standard outputs. Maybe there is something interesting. So I'm just going to quickly go through this. There is admin can be found. So it did say local account token filter policy. Okay, whatever. PowerShell. Nope. It did internet settings. No. So here we can see that it had some sort of NTLM options open that allowed us to get in. But other than that, we don't really see. Um, so here is a nice one. So now this is increased networking. No. Nothing interesting. Administrator account is enabled. That's only important if, let's say, we have certain privileges, like I think for pri- um, SeRestore or something, you need to have that account be present, and then you can exploit it. But definitely, you'll have to go through this output yourself. Take a look at it. Be sure to be able to differentiate what is actually something that looks like exploitable and something that is just regular stuff, and just seems like it's something that you should be doing, but really it isn't. So that is what is the case with most of this, right? So I'm just gonna I'm just gonna move on to my getting Sharphound and mapping out what other options are there. There's this other one. I think I can showcase that, which is really good at finding out flags. Like if you ever miss a flag or something, there is this thing called Sauron Eye. It will quite recursively quickly find all the log and text files, txt files on the host, so that anything interesting would come up. So let me just show you guys that. I'm just gonna exit out of here. Yeah, this is why I don't like evil Venarium. Like it's really slow. Like and then there's some tokens like incognito, and those like attacks don't work through this because it doesn't really carry over those tokens. So it's not ideal, but it is powerful. It is a good stepping stone to get Meterpreter on the box. Okay, so I wanted to get yeah. So what I'll do is I'm gonna look at which directory I am in, and I want to get Sauron Eye and also Sharphound on the host so that I can get more information about the domain and everything. Uh, so the first thing I want to do is change my directory. So let's go to Windows, tasks. I will have to escape the characters because right now I'm inside the Meterpreter shell. So it is a layer above it. So that's why issue. And yeah, my type like spelling mistakes is quite common for me. I will definitely make a few of them. So yeah, so right now let's see which directory we're in. We are in C Windows tasks, and I want to upload some PowerShell scripts. Now you also saw the option for the PowerShell plugin, the option there, but I'm just gonna keep it simple and upload the files and then just use PowerShell that way. So I want to upload those files, so that would be upload, and then let's just take a look. Tools, and I want to get exes. So that would be Sharpound. Yep. This one is good. Sometimes there has been cases where sometimes Sharpound has issues, but the C sharp version, it for me it worked. And let me also check if I have Sauron Eye, which I mentioned. So because it's really good at finding. Otherwise, I'll just share the link later, and you guys definitely check it out. But it'll quickly recursively get all of the interesting files for you. Let me just see. While that searches, I'm just gonna upload the oh wow, didn't make a spelling mistake. That is, I would pat myself on the back for that. Right. So we have Sharpound on the host, and what it basically does is it maps out all of the relationships that are there. Now you don't need it, but you kind of do need it because it gives you a nice graphical user interface and all that information that you can then pass to actually the Bloodhound, and that will generate a use like the whole map it out using graph. It's a special kind of database. I'm forgetting the exact name, but it's graphic, like based on not like your SQL but like GraphQL sort of. Invoke Sauron, I don't think I would be able to find it, but yeah, that would be definitely something we would have to. Okay, fine, it found it, but it was an exe. Nice. Let me also get that on the box just to showcase to you guys why I really like this one. So the Meterpreter also has the option to do search, but it is so slow. Like I really don't like it. So now, because I have both the binaries I need, I am going to drop into a shell, a PowerShell, but I am going to do a few things. So I'm gonna do interactive CA and then do cast the command to do a PowerShell EP bypass so that it gives me a PowerShell script like session without me having to, specify it. So now, otherwise, you could just drop into a normal CMD and then do this, but I just give it and then create it. All right. So we have both of our binaries right there. Now, Sauron I, let's see what it does. So it's not recognized. Why? Wow. Okay, so Sauron. Yeah, the spelling mistake. So see how fast it is. Like if you only compare to, oh no, you can't get those OSEF scripts that I made myself. You can take the course and then compile them yourself. But yeah, so you can compare this to like the time it took for Sauron I to complete the scan compared to if you could. So let's say I have this local.txt, right? If I just come to my Meterpreter search function, it will be extremely slow. Like it is unusable. But Sora and I would it like got us all of these files that it thought are interesting, and it also checks inside of the I think the files. But yeah, so we can already see we have our local, and we also have a to do, which we would have missed otherwise, right? So I'm just going to see what is inside this. So and let's see. So it says set up a Flask application, done. Use group managed service account for Apache. Okay, so this so if you remember when we ran at c like the Meterpreter command, it showed us the svc group uh Apache. So obviously if we take a note of it there, that is something that we should definitely look for when we launch Bloodhound and we're looking into the environment. Other than that, they didn't really so this is the main hint that they provided would be use group managed service account, and then they did that, and then obviously the rest of it isn't really useful for us, so that's something that we should look at. So now I'm just going to run sharphound, and there is generally you can do all and it should give you everything, but I think you sometimes it doesn't. Like there is a screenshot like a picture I will share where it misses out one group. However, I think for us we'll just take a look, so I'll just do group even. But there was a case where it did that, but we can make sure ourselves. We have group local domain gpo local group session logged on. Yeah, it should have done everything. I think that was an older issue, but we'll take a look. So what this is basically doing, it's going to generate all of the data, put it in a file, zip it up, that we can then give to our Bloodhound ingester, which will ingest all of that data and then create the a graph for us. So while this is doing its thing, we will see if we'll get our Bloodhound set up and running. So Bloodhound, it uses Neo4j as the back, like as the database provider, and then it runs on top of it. So you need to have Neo4j console running and as root, I imagine. Yeah. So let's see. So it's going to be running, and in case it's your first time, it would prompt you to change the password. But for me, I've run it before. But for today, I actually did delete it off and install it again just to make sure there weren't any issues that might come up that I should address, but there weren't any. Just make sure to clear out your config file, purge it before you install a new one, and shouldn't come into any other issues. So if I do Bloodhound, you can see this popped up. I'm gonna move out and just log in. So default passwords are Neo4j, Neo4j, but it does ask you to change it, and then you will have to change it. So you are provided with this UI. Now, right off the bat, it's going to be empty. And then you have to provide that file for it to make any good use. Yep, this Sauron, I thank you for sharing that. That's really like very useful. Would highly recommend. Okay, so the client is all so yeah, this is not the one I'm looking at. Yeah, so now we have our output of the output we got from running sharphound. So if I do a listing, we have this zip file that we need. So I'm just going to background this, yeah, and download it using Meterpreter, which makes life easier. And I think you can also do this with evil WinRM, but it's not that stable. At least for me, it wasn't. So, and now we don't really have to even unzip it. Bloodhound would be able to do it for us. So you want to come to Bloodhound, you want to go to upload data, and then you want to obviously go to where the file is saved. So for us, it's going to be walkthroughs, and then here it is. So I'm going to open it up and it will load all of it. Now, in case you ever do get compatibility issues, I've seen issues with the PowerShell script. So the sharphound.ps1, I in the like myself, I don't use it. I prefer the C# version. It's been always been stable. Haven't had any issues. But if you do have like come across any issues, try to switch to this one, and it should go nicely. So now basically it will graph everything out for you. So the first thing you want us to do is search for the current user that you are. So I'm going to do Enox, and I'm just going to search for that user, and it shows us the user now. And I'm going to set it as my as an owned, so that I can then refer to it as, so that the path can be mapped out for me. I'll show you like how powerful it can be. So right now this is a node, so we're a node, and we will have to see the, let's see why we did not get any analysis. So yeah, so you have to click on it. Now I'm not sure about the size. Let me see if I can change that up for the UI. So not here. I don't believe that we will be able to increase the size of this UI, but hopefully we I can go in like deeper like this, but the UI here would stay the same. So what we're looking for, obviously we have your normal way of sessions, where the user has a session on. We can see it's on this host. Yeah, that's not really interesting. What else? So it will also, like, if this was a big environment, it would map out a lot of things. For us, we're looking for any group policies that would allow us to move to that SVC, Apache group. But I'm not even going to enter it directly. I'm going to go through all of these things to see if there's anything else of interest. Now, most of it will be regular things, and the direction basically it takes is, so it's like a needle. So from here, you would go here, and then this is the direction it moves into. So in case anyone's wondering how the direction here works, but if I come down, so you can, it will map out all of this information for you. Now, I said the most interesting thing is group membership. So it shows us where Enox, and I'm just going to do, so we're this user and we are a member of domain users. Obviously that is uh obviously that so that we're on the host. We're also on the web admins, and we're also on remote management users. This admins is obviously interesting because we already know about this. That's how we're on the host, but this web admins especially is something of interest. So I'm going to click on this, and now it's going to show me information about the web admin. And then I'd go about looking at who else is in this group, and what are the extra permissions given to me for being in this group. So that's basically I want to look at something that would be normally hidden from you, uh, even though you have those permissions. So I can see direct members. We have Enox, nothing really fancy. I already know this. What else? uh, Outbound object control. So this group can do something to others. That's what we were looking for, and that's what we got. So we're web admin, and there's this other group, obviously called SVC Service Apache, and we have some sort of permissions given to us through those group policy, right? And the great thing about Bloodhound is actually that it allows you to, it gives you the way on how to implement, how to get to there. So let's say if I do help, it's going to give me information on how to abuse this relationship to get to this one. So it says that group managed service accounts are special object, which a special type of object where the password for that object is managed by and automatically changed by domain controllers on a set interval. So the intended use, whatever, how would do we exploit it? So this looks like GMCA. So there are several ways to abuse it, and the most straightforward is for a currently logged in user. However, that isn't really looking for. So it even gives you these links to the exploits. But uh, so that's definitely we'll use this. However, we don't really know where we're headed to, right? Because fine, I can become this user, but what next? So I'm gonna select this and see if this user, obviously this is the path we're going. However, let's say we were in a huge environment. You don't want to jump the gun. You want to make sure, we definitely make sure that wherever you're headed is the right one. So do enumerate a little bit, even though if it looks like, oh yeah, this is the one, just pull the trigger. You want to see if there may be something else that's hidden. But in our case, doesn't seem like it. Now, what I did everything manually, right? And then obviously because I set the start my owned user, so it also gives you the options to as the ending node or the shortest path here from owned. So because I set my user to be owned, Enox to be owned, what I can do is I can click on that, and then it will map out the full direct, like all the steps that I need to get to that users. So I have to do basically one step, but in other cases, it would be a long chain. Another thing about Bloodhound that is really nice is, let's say, is the saved queries that are provided to you that you can actually run to see like who has the shortest path to certain unconsidered delegation. Obviously, for pen 200, it's not really in scope, like you don't get it, but for pen 300, this is all, like this is where you kind of mostly live for the place. And then obviously there are custom queries too, which you can get off GitHub. But yeah, so let's say I want to see users with like all of these queries, they run for you. But for us, we just want to exploit that GM SA. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and let's just search for them now, because I do know that they exist, right? So I wanted to do the shortest path, whatever. So yeah, so let's look at the exploit now. So, and then the other good thing is, let's say for reporting, you want to show that, oh, this is how I found out that this is the exploit, or this gives us a nice option to export the graph as a PNG. So you can just include literally the screenshot in the in for the report, and you're good to go. And then you can also include other information, but this is fine even for the exam. If you just show this, like it will work for you. Uh, so now I just want to go back to that exploit. So Windows, Linux abuses, and all that. So we need a GMCA AD dumper. So first thing we need to make sure is the service running and everything. So for that, I'm just going to grab the exploit from here and then check that out. Is there a specific terminal? No, no. So this one is the UI for Bloodhound itself. So what you need to do is, if I come to my terminal here, basically the service that's providing the graphing abilities is Neo4j, because that's the whole database, and then Bloodhound is runs on top of it, and it is a graphical user interface. But then you basically both of them combined together give you that, and you can run it. So it runs on i3, like it does run. It doesn't have issues with i3 and Kali. So it gave us the a link for it, but I would myself search for something better, maybe some. So I'm just going to do GMCA, and then what basically it was allowed us to do was change passwords, or maybe even read them, right? Because if you can change them, you should also be able to read them. So how to retrieve, and we have, so I'm always looking for GitHub, because most of the people do the heavy lifting over there for us. So GMCA password reader, and you can clone and compile this. What about a compiled option? I think we, obviously I can compile it too, but it's just not going to be for the scope of this. So this one basically will allow us to read a password blob from GMC account using LDAP and parses the value. So what we are trying to do right now is basically use our permissions as a group user to then essentially either read the password or change it for all the members inside the SVC group, right? So basically, so the web admin group that we are currently in has the ability to have that execution. So now I'm just looking for I think Enox himself also has a he compiled it for us most likely. So I'm just gonna do, because I do most of the compiling on my Windows host, and right now for the stream, running two of them would certainly take a toll on my PC. So read MSA reader, yeah, password, yeah. So GMSA password Enox, and then I'll just say GitHub. And here we have something. So this is his profile, and if we come to, uh, he should have a compiled executable for us. Generally, I would always recommend not doing this, but like from known repositories, you can. But generally, if you can compile them, do it. But yeah, I think it would be. Let's see. Wow, we were fooled. We can. Think it was in his tools, maybe. Um, Otherwise, I'll just have to launch it. Maybe we can compile it with mono, but yeah. So let's see, CS, and then so where are his repositories? Fake pip. Wow. I think in a Google search, there something did pop up. Let me just take a look at this. What is this? Just some stuff. Or he might have removed them. Oh yeah, here it is. So here is the compiled the exe that we kind of need. Looks like he has other ones that are nice, but yeah, I'm just gonna, I can download this zip, but I can also create it so I can steal his work later on too. So now I'm just gonna do GitHub. And we have, and by the way, this ls command is exa, so you can have exa run instead of ls, and it gives you all of these nice features. So we wanted gmca power password readers. I'm going to do copy path, and it should have copied it to our clipboard. So now let's upload it. Wow, did not specify the can it autocomplete? Yeah, can. Okay, so we're gonna upload this and then we're gonna try it. Now, obviously, when you're doing it in the exam environment, you're gonna be trying several things and then something works. So be mindful of it. But yeah, it's just something that you have to go through to find. But right now, let's see how it runs. So I'm gonna do, also we have the option for channels. So if you have, let's say, a previous process running and you don't want to create on new processes, you can even interact with it. So you can do it similarly to a shell. So channel that a dash I guess. Okay, wait, it is I and then ID5. Yeah, my bad. So I guess you have to press enter twice. Yeah. Otherwise, it's going to get stuck there. That's just something that happens. Just be mindful of it. So now let's see. So we're going to use this. Now, the only issue I have with Meterpreter is that it doesn't give you the terminal, autocomplete, which is really sad. But yeah, so it won't even let you use the history. But other than that, it's quite good. So let's look at the options. Retrieve password for account. So you would do this, and for changing it, I'd say let's just grab it. So domain name. Now for us, we don't really have to specify these things because we're the only machine in this environment. But otherwise, you definitely want to specify most of the things, because in a big environment, you never know where the request is going out to. Maybe there are other subdomains, and then you won't have permission to query those, and that would result in errors. So it's always best to just specify exactly what you want. Obviously, you should run like wide scans, but for tasks, you should specify exactly so that you know that maybe it's not the exploit that's wrong. It's just some other issue. Okay, so we would want to do the account name, and we want the SVC Apache. Let's see. And it was able to get us some nice information. So the host, I think the account, the group is also named this, but that there's also, I guess, so there's a user called Service Apache, and then the group is also called that. Okay, nice. So what did we get? We got, are both these hashes the same? Nope, doesn't look like. So this is the old. Okay, so it can read both of the values, and I guess it changed the password for it. I'm not sure. I'll just copy it and then we can test. So we want. I just want to copy all of this. So I'm just gonna get that. Go to my where is it? My VS Code and just record these. So here they are. Now I'm not going to be cracking them. Instead, I'm just going to try to pass them and use them. So obviously you want to, wherever you can, pass and reuse is definitely what you should be doing. Only in terms of Net-NTLM hashes is when you would actually try to crack them. So let's try the first one. uh, Now there's several tools you could use this with. uh, Obviously there were so many services running. So however, I think the first one I'm going to try is for the Evil WinRM, because it worked for us previously and it should again. So at this point, I am going to shut down Bloodhound, but you should, in case you were going to continue, you would obviously come back to it and do your things, and then you can obviously export things and stuff. So for us, that's pretty much it. So I'm just going to come here, and then you can clear your, even if you want, you could clear the session, everything, but I'm just going to log out for now. All right, so coming back here, let's try the first hash. Just try it within VS Code. Why go back and try things? So RPN, and we want. I just have a couple of Ruby, the versions running, but you wouldn't have to do this. But yeah, so let's try it. So EvilWinRM, and the user is SV. It's going to be SVC Apache. And so one thing you will have to specify is this is important. You can't you will have to include this $sign at the end, and then go from there. So SVC Apache, and hash is with H, yeah. And then let me just give the hash, and the host is DC01. I think it worked. Otherwise, we'll have to give the new one. But if these don't work, then I would move on to crap map exec, load in the hash, and see if it gets a hit. I think we can also do this with the with obviously Metasploit, but I think the reason it took longer was because, let's see if there's a message. Oh yeah, so there is no two. You're right. You're right. I'm just very opinionated. If I think something is right, I just do it. Now I'm joking. It's just things. I really make lots of spelling mistakes, especially when hacking. But yeah, it's just something that can't be helped. So it did work. So now we are that user. Now again, I am going to just get a shell for this user, and for that I won't really have to do anything fancy because I already have my uh, So I didn't specify the actually for this one. So I didn't specify the binary file. So most likely I'll have to come on quit. Let's go back to that shell because it's bigger. So let's come back to our session over this one will do. So SVC Apache no two only dollar sign was, and I think I have it in my buffer. Nope, I don't have it in my copy buffer. This one even work. Let's see if this works, but otherwise I will have to grab it. Yeah. So I want to specify my tools directory. So tools or serve, but I will show you guys how to build, like I will share how you can build your own dynamic one. So I just said I couldn't share all the contents of the all the files, but definitely can share some of especially this. That's why I'm showing it. Otherwise I wouldn't just dangle it in your faces just to say, oh sorry. That's yeah. So I will showcase this. Basically you can then make it dynamic, and it has a nice other features too that you can use. But yeah, this is while this loads up. So even Metasploit has the option for upload and execute. So we can even move to that one because that is slow. But yeah, this one said auth error. Not really sure why it said that. Hmm. Did I copy the wrong one? Let's take a look. So hash DCO1 scripts. Okay, wait, I know the issue. Yeah, because we specified scripts, but it's actually EXEs. So yeah, we're not sure why it gave us that error, but yeah, WinRM authorization error. Hmm. Shouldn't have killed this session then. Yep. But obviously, because we have the hash, we can also see if Metasploit gives us something. Uh, Maybe if I change it up and try, that would be weird, right? But let's see. So, not the new password now worked, and previously it was also. Yeah, this is gonna take some time to investigate on why that was the case. But yeah. Okay, so we are here. I'm just gonna clear the screen and let's get a our reverse shell for Metasploit, like Meterpreter. So we want to do invoke binary. Running this command loads it in is not so. Okay, so first you have to run menu that loads in the modules, and then you have to do invoke binary. Yeah, then you can run invoke binary, and then it will give you autocomplete features, and then you can then specify your target run. And now generally you don't have to give commas, but just for evil NRM, that's how you have to specify the parameters. And my handler should already be running because I set it to exit on session false. So that means even after we get a session, I can get a shell on the same port, same everything. It should be listening. So if I come back to my MSF and let's just background this, and we should see a hit. Yeah. So we got another like we got a callback, and this time it is from the other one. So even this one is nice. That's why I like it. Like it shows me, oh, if I have a job running on how many sessions I have, it's really useful. So let's list out the sessions. And you can see that this time it's from obviously the other user. So let's see. And I'm just going to do a shorthand. So sessions dash I should give us the new user. So who am I? I think for this one, it's So obviously Meterpreter has its own commands. So it should be, so it is actually Apache. The service group was, I think, the service itself was Apache too. But I think, am I reading an older one or? Yeah, the configs I will share. So let's see what else we can use with Metasploit. So obviously I am going to try the usual commands, but I wanted to see some some enumeration commands to see maybe get some usernames or something. I think there isn't one, like I wanted to do basically who am I, but we will have to drop into a shell for that. So yeah. You don't have to specify this, like you can directly go it, but that way. But this is just something that I like. It works for me, so I'm just stick to it. So I'm going to go to the directory and just then we can enumerate now what to do now. Like good, we have this user, but what about this user? So who am I all? Basic command, and it gave us a couple of options, right? So let me just go up and see from the top. So obviously we have our username, SID, whatever, and it shows us the groups that this user belongs to. So they are already part of, okay, so they are part of NT Authority Network, NTLM authentication. Yeah, that's good. Remote management. What about privileges? So they have all the privileges enabled, but not your usual impersonate privilege. This is actually restore privilege that is enabled. And this is a well-known one. It allows you to, essentially, it gives you the option to restore files, but giving that option, it also gives you another privilege that just allows you to read any file that you want just through some of the navigating those permissions, right? Uh, so sure, sure. Oh, glad you enjoyed it. But yeah, this one itself is also a bit tricky to implement. So I wanted to showcase how you would go about it because the restore one isn't quite straightforward. But yeah, so let's just quickly. So this is a well-known one. It's the issue with it, unlike the get system, is that it won't work directly off the bat. But yeah, let me just now. I'm gonna background this one, and I'm also going to show you that get system command. So generally you just run this, right? But there are actually more options to it even. So if recently you tried get system on a computer, like on a target and it didn't work, it's probably because the old variant is no longer there. I would recommend trying this new one. So this is the potato, and you will definitely get it. This is something that I even recently learned, and I was like, wow, because I was then compiling my own spool sample and everything to get a shell. But yeah, so right now, if I do get system, it's not going to return anything. But if it was, this is how you would go about it. Let's see if Metasploit does have a SeRestore one. Otherwise, we will have to implement it ourselves. But yeah, so while this is running, let's also do a bit of research on how we would go about it. So it's CSE restore priv uh, esc Windows GitHub. Service accounts. Let me also increase the size. So right, so OSCP sheet. Assign primary privilege, not really what we're looking for. Let me just copy it exactly. Otherwise, everyone's gonna be like, "Why you uh, naming it the other way?" Or like, "Why did you search for this?" It's just because I wrote it wrong. That's the main reason why. Let me just quickly get a shell and get the exact wording we need. And this time I'll just use priv to just get me what I needed. So it's SeRestore, SE, not even C. So let me come back and search the proper way. So actually, GitHub also has a really nice search feature. Recently, it got the AI powered thing, but previously it wasn't this powerful. So it was actually, if I remember, it was in a preview first, and then they gave this. So it become much more powerful. But we want to do all of GitHub and SeRestore. And but the way you would use it is if you would need to search exactly, uh, like let's say you're looking for a Python script that you think would like the code would be a Python script or like an exploit script. So that's when you could kind of include the words like so it's basically like GitHub Copilot but for the search. So if you can specify something similar that you know will be inside that exploit, it will be very it will get you the like definitely find it for you. So their search can, so let's say if I just search for this, it will give me a few things, and it gave me the XCTs one. But if I wanted to make it much more powerful, I would specify some other like word that I'm using looking for. Maybe like if it's a Python library, I would just say includes this. I import some library is also included in the code, and it gets so many things for you. And sometimes I even think it's things that people did not mean to share, but they made them public in some sort of repository, and it will get it for you. So both of them are, one is January and one is October. Let's see. uh, SeRestore, and then you will have to. This one is a bit complicated, but it but should work. So executes a command as a system when SeRestore is assigned. In case it's disabled, it will also enable it for you. So yeah, that is something that you need to be mindful of, so that you have to enable it first. And yeah, this one is also needs to be compiled. So that's not what we're gonna do right now. No compilation. So in case we don't find a exe, the next thing we can search for is a PowerShell script. So I'm just going to come over here and say language. I think you have to be signed in to get those nice features, but let me see. Uh, Advanced search. Okay, let's go. Take me to advanced search. It normally auto completes once you write language. Not sure why it didn't pop up here, but let's just include a .ps1. So not sure why it said code is not there, but who has an issue with that. So currently this, okay, so maybe I have to log in to find it, but definitely do check this one out. It's really helpful. But I'm just going to do C restore privilege enables for you, and then also runs it. Yeah, most likely this is the one. But so let me open this one and also this one. This is by someone, uh, and this and the second one is also by someone. Okay, so let's see. So basically it runs the let me make it bigger. If I log in, a lot of nice features come up, so let me just try that. Yeah, now we get this UI. I think we can even make it a bit bigger for us. But yeah, this let's see now, symbol and what else. So okay, not that good, but yeah, you can see that it needs to first run some C# code. So that's how we bypass the need to actually compile for it, because PowerShell does support, like, right off the bat, you can compile these things. So this is the one I think we wanted. So permission, this is permission script, but this will enable it for us, and then we can exploit it. Uh, C enables NTFS. What else? Let me just grab this one. So enable SeRestore. So first we're going to enable it. Most likely it is disabled, but so here it said state, but if we do try to do it, most likely won't work. But we also would need to get an exploit. So this is actually a two-part exploit. First, you enable it, and then you would need to replace a file for the exploit. Let me see if I can find something that actually explains it better of what we're doing. There is this XCT has it well explained in his blog post. So the one that we were looking at before. So the bit of explanation too, right? So what are we trying to do? So executes the command when SeRestore is assigned, because obviously SeRestore normally won't just let you run commands. That's not what it's for. So that's why I wanted to maybe go into, because I've used it before too. So that's why it's quite straightforward for me. But just want to showcase that how is it doing it? It's basically it's abusing those token privileges that get assigned, and then it starts service, which then goes and does the thing for you. So they kind of abstract out most of these steps, but that's basically how they basically use that permission, extract out the token for that particular permission, and then they abuse it to then create, so then they create a key value, and then they start a service that then exploits it. So normally you would be like, how are you moving from one to another, right? So this is basically the whole setup for it. So let me just grab this one, and let's also search if something is there for us in Metasploit. Some usually it's easy to make plugins for this. So I have noticed that sometimes even if something is not there, you can quickly do it. So search post Windows and then SeRestore. Yeah, nothing. Maybe just restore, rollback. Yeah, that's not what we're looking for. So now let's quickly come to my let's create that exploit, that PowerShell thing, and it didn't copy. We got some highlighting. So it says it's going to get the current one, get the token, what else? And then it's just going to enable it. And then we will most likely enables so restore privilege for the current user. It allows you to overwrite any ACL protected files. And then you can check if it's there. And then a full scenario is right here. So this is good. We can check this out later. And then, yeah, so this is there, but the second part of the exploit, we would still need to find a service to replace, because it will change it for us. However, how will we abuse it? And that's where this would come in. So most likely, if you remember, we saw that so utility, we saw WSN man running. Maybe we can replace that, but let's see what all of this would do for us. So I'm just going to save it as, and if I come over here, the PowerShell module is also great. So let me also showcase what it can do. So if you do load PowerShell, now the whole thing with PowerShell is the context something is loaded into the session in, and how it works. So let's say I was to execute a PowerShell script using Meterpreter. How would I find the session it's in? Because that it's, if you can't really control the session, it's quite useless, because even if I steal the token right now using PowerShell, it's not going to be assigned to any specific session. So what this utility basically allows you to is create specific sessions into which you can load power, like those exploits into. So if I do PowerShell dash H, PowerShell dash L, so what did it do? What did the extension do that it said that, oh, loaded successfully? Really? PowerShell exception has already been okay. Underscore shell. Yeah, so that was the issue. Let me exit out of this. Uh, I think the best way to go about it is to write help. And yeah, there it is. So you have to prefix it with this. So execute a shell, import a binary, and uh, create a prompt. So now if I do dash import and dash h, why isn't it what? So that was the underscore. Okay, so here it will, you can see that imports script that can be loaded in a session. So this is why it's important, really useful. So I will load it in the context of a particular session that I create, and then when I enter that session, the shell will be the module will be loaded inside it. If you normally go about it, you will notice that sometimes things won't work because you're not really managing the PowerShell sessions themselves. You're actually managing processes created through CMD. And so, yeah, that's basically the issue I came across. That's why I found this to be useful. So I'm just going to close this up and I will load up. I'm just here to copy the a path to my SeRestore. I want to import this, and do I get completion? Yeah. And then let's create a new session. I'll just call it one for now. So it actually loaded everything up and it ran something, right? So the last run, get last error, fine. And lookup privilege value was this, adjusted it, and it did enable things. But now we would actually have to exploit it. So in that session, we should have higher privileges to do so. So if I now enter that session, PowerShell, so now if I do uh, user claims unknown, I don't know how to explain it a bit better, that like we do have elevated permissions now, which we didn't have previously. But let me see. I did a priv first, but yeah, we definitely I would recommend reading the actual exploit to see what was exactly like how it works. So enable, so it would enable that, but let me see, let me copy this. So the issue was it ran the thing without actually prompting us directly, right? So we couldn't really see if we had to pass some option into it or what was going on. So I'm just checking if it's loaded in the session or not before trying anything else. So now it did look up. Okay, so it's a current process handle, token handle, calling lookup privilege. And yeah, so this has been enabled. But now what? So we would have to, basically to get a shell, we will have to replace some service that then when we log in would be used to provide us, like it can't be a shell that I know is the, it has to be something on the host. So API calls open process, but basically if we check that, let's just also confirm what exactly is going on. So my copy paste so basically I'm on a Mac machine that has its keyboard mapped from command to alt, like this, that switched up, and then I go into a VM that is also like it's also running i3 and has its own bindings. So you can imagine like when things don't work, the way why copy paste doesn't work right off the bat, and this VM itself is running on a vSphere. So not vSphere, a local EXI server. So it's not even running on my own local host. So maybe we can understand why the even the sometimes things don't work. So I'm just trying to look at the rest of the so priv to admin was actually how we were going to lead to a privilege escalation, and then one of the ways was to use one of those so one of these privileges to actually reach some point. So let's see what is required. So administrative privileges listed, explained. The goal is to achieve using built-in commands and whatever. You can check your privileges that way, not nt whatever. um what we basically have to do, yeah, so this C backup. Okay, so this is what I was looking for, I think. Before, let's see. So we have this privilege. The tool we used was SeRestore, and what this script even did was actually using built-in commands for this. And you enable the privilege in the token. That's right. Okay, then you can either export. So basically, you do the get system secret dump, and then you can authenticate as the local administrator. So that is one way. And then okay, so we also have user account. Okay, so this is why it needs a bit more of massaging to actually get to the to get actually get a shell, because there is going to be user account control present, and for that you have to do some hacking magic to get into it. So robocopy requires both backup to be there, and then we would basically copy it, and then when the user UAC comes up, we also have to click on that. So this one is there. Pass the hash. Nope. So let me see, because I know a way how I do it, but I'm just looking for the explanation, proper one for it, as to how we're even bypassing it. But what you would essentially do is you would enable this service, and then you will go back and you would uh, replace the CM. So let me just show you guys. So if I have this service running, and we'll use utilman, which is a built-in application for accessibility, and we will basically abuse that to bypass even the user account control. So I'm going to go to Windows, because we're also going above the time. It was supposed to be 2 hours, but yeah, I'm quickly going to showcase this exploit and then share a link for where you can look at it more. Like, so obviously should never do ls inside system 32 because it will keep on going. But yeah, but with this higher privilege, what we can do is essentially change up one of the executables here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use move util man exe to, because I can back it up, right? I can't. So any other thing, it won't allow me to do. But if I kind of move it into a backup, it can. So now all I can do is uh, move the CMD to be this file. I think I won't be able to paste it, copy it, but I think this will work. So now what we're kind of actually doing, we just changed the CMD to and named it utilman. So now if I come to, let's say I want to, now when I go to RDP into the machine, so I'll show that. So if I use our desktop, and we can then uh, try to just log in. So that should be DC01. Now, without even anything, if I press Windows U, so where is the Windows key? You can see I got a shell right there, right? Basically, the utilman is launched when you press like you access those Windows accessibility features. And what we essentially did was, because we didn't directly have the permission to actually get a shell, but we can move anything we want. So if we were on Linux, we could have just done the normal move the etc password to add a user or something. But with Windows, it's a bit different. But what you can essentially do is just this technique. So let me just try to get on that. And that shell will have the higher privileges. So you can see who am I. And yeah, so we're here. So let me just quickly prove it, that we indeed are the administrator. Obviously, to get a proper shell, you would quickly move this on there. So let's see if I can even do that. So we already have the So let me not getting a shell, like proper shell would be like wrong to finish the stream up with. But yeah, so we have, okay, so we will quickly move so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the executable to upload it here. And then from there I can get a reverse shell, but I need to upload the executable first. But yeah, essentially this is primarily the host has been solved, but you would need a reverse shell for it. So I'm just getting that. Uh, so it would be tools. So it is a bit like, if you don't do it fast, it will keep on shutting down, because essentially is a bad hack. Like, but that's how you do it. So I'm just gonna set it up first, final stager, and upload it to, hopefully what I'm hoping is, see, tasks. And now if I come back to my old command, which was right here, and we really quickly just showcase that again. So cd, you can obviously use any other method too, but this one, if we have it there, we will use it. So which final stager, run 192.168.45.145, and before it shuts down, just launch it, and it will essentially do that. So what you're seeing right now is, because I'm using my reverse shell is an HTTPS. So I have to find the nonce that is created, but for normal TCP or normal one, you don't even have to do that. So it said downloading file, everything. So now if I come back here, I'm just going to close this. We can see we got a connection back. So background and 3 sessions dot, and here we are as NT authority user. So